Good evening. Welcome to The Next Word. I'm your host, Chris Warnke, and tonight we have a reigning queen, beauty queen, Miss United States, who's currently serving out her 2018-2019 title. She is a resident of Maryland and a therapist with the Psychiatric Institute here in Washington, D.C., and a great advocate for mental health. And you're so talented and multi-talented, and besides being beautiful, of course.
Thank you very much.
But that's the whole. You're everything, and just thank you for being here, first of all.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my
I'm
God.
so excited.
And what a role model.
Thank you.
For young women, and all women, but for young women. Starting off though, okay, you're the current reigning queen.
Yes, I am.
Which is so amazing. You got your reign is going to finish September.
In August.
August.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you've had fun.
I've had fun. It's been a lot of work, but the most rewarding part has been being able to bring what I do for a living every day onto a national platform.
Absolutely.
As a licensed psychotherapist, so it's been nice to be able to shed light on really important topics that are not just important to me, but for so many people who just need a voice and an advocate.
Absolutely. No, and that's part of when you competed. Certainly, you had to have. I mean, what you do is just as more important as who you are and how you being beautiful as you are. But that goes into the whole. I think the judging, correct, and how you, what your role is in society and how you project, and your presence and your stage presence certainly, but your presence, not only on stage but off stage.
Yes, in the interview room. Our interviews are a little bit more intense, so they're round robin. So you're spending about 4 to 5 minutes with maybe 6 judges. And then our onstage questions were press-style conference, so they were rapid-fire questions.
Really?
And I actually took home the highest scores in interviews and onstage question and evening gown. So it was a nice win for me, but I think the most important part was being able to resonate with a very diverse group of really esteemed judges.
And to connect with them, which is critical.
Yes.
In their final choice. Mm-hmm. And it's a process. I notice when you do enter these pageants, when you enter a pageant, I mean, you may not win certainly the first time or the second time, but it's a process, and is that what you experienced when you
yes.
ran?
I competed for the Miss United States title a few different times.
You did, okay.
I actually went last year as an appointed state, so a state that didn't have a representative, just to have I had the experience, and it was much different. At the time I was living in Virginia when I competed this year, so I got to represent the state of Virginia.
Oh, wow.
But when I went last year, I was I was Delaware, so a different state, and it was still nice to be able to go and have that experience, but I felt like I was just getting my independent license and still getting into my career outside of pageantry. And once that had been established, I was able to engulf myself in the preparation process and really put my all on the stage and in the interview room. It was a totally different experience and obviously a different outcome this year.
Well, absolutely. And you started when you were 11?
No, I actually started 4 years ago.
Oh, just 4 years ago. But so this is recent. This is amazing.
It's very recent.
I thought, because a lot of women that I've interviewed or I've spoken to, like I said, it's a lifelong goal.
Yes.
In some instances, but for you, that's a truly remarkable.
Yeah, it was. I didn't grow up watching. I grew up in theater, so for me, it felt like it kind of goes hand in hand. I've been in theater since I was 11, ironically, actually. Yeah. So I did musical theater, and then I studied theater all throughout college. And then when I got to graduate school, I would still actually stay involved in a lot of the theater productions with my undergraduate college. Right. Okay. So I've been engulfed in that. So
that helped tremendously. That's
definitely
where your stage
did.
presence comes in.
Yes, I'm sure of that. And then danced in college. So it's a lot of performing my whole life. And my father's a musician from Ghana, so I've been around music my entire life. So yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. So he's a musician. Wow. Mm-hmm. So you've had a mix of everything, an impact.
Yes,
on where you are now.
Yeah, I would go to his shows as a little girl and watch him perform, and I'd sometimes go on stage. So yeah, I've always been around performing, and it's always been a good outlet for me. And it just felt nice that this could be an outlet with a purpose. That's what I think pageantry has been for me.
Right. Now, speaking of your father, who's from Ghana, I mean, do you feel strong? You have strong roots back to Africa.
I do.
Of course, you've been.
Haven't been officially. So I know my father came here in the '80s, And shortly after I was born, he was diagnosed with leukemia.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of my upbringing, he's been battling his health a lot.
Yes.
So a lot of our family are here, so there's a lot of strong and rich traditions that we have here, but
yes. Strong community.
a strong community. But I really hope to be able to go and do a lot of humanitarian work over in Africa and Ghana, and I may have an opportunity to do some work with the TIS Foundation, which is where I met you at the gala last week.
Right. They do a lot of work in Africa.
Yes,
right.
so I'm looking forward to that as well, and just
yes.
figuring out what that looks like. It's a very new conversation that we're having right now, but they do so much work, and it's nice to be able to bring forth a mental health movement, especially for people in different parts of the world.
20 years ago people weren't talking about, or 15 years ago weren't talking about. We're just now, people talk about it, but it takes people like yourself to be out there on the stage to talk about it.
Just to normalize it.
Just to normalize it,
Yes.
absolutely. No,
Even with my clients, and the work that I do outside of the stage, outside of the spotlight, that really intimate work that I do behind the scenes, a lot of it is me normalizing my own experiences for them. Like, yes, I get nervous. Yes, I get anxious. Yes, I have good days and bad days. And it's okay to be accepting of every emotion. So it's nice to put a face to therapist for everybody else on the outside who, isn't in session with us.
Right. So what made you go into this line of work? I mean, because you are a social worker,
Yes.
you are a psychiatric therapist. I mean, obviously something.
Yes, for sure. I would say that I did
put you-
not grow up with the taboo of mental health. When I was really little, my aunt lived with us, and she's a beautiful person, but she also has schizophrenia.
Oh,
So I watched her and witnessed a lot of her symptoms, from auditory hallucinations to visual hallucinations. And
interesting.
I learned early on so my family dynamic is very interesting. So my mom is transgendered from female to male.
Okay.
So so my dad, who my mom at the time, would always explain to me that your aunt has a mental illness and there's nothing wrong with her, but the world just perceives her differently.
Right.
So I didn't grow up with any fear or uncertainty around mental health. I was always intrigued by it. And then my dad is also a psychiatric nurse. So
Oh, he is?
Yes.
Oh,
So I had
interesting.
internships on inpatient psychiatric units that most people are afraid to walk in on. And I
right.
was never afraid. I was always more intrigued and wanted to understand the brain more and how the biology works. And so I engulfed myself in that study. And then in college, I really put a strong emphasis on psychology. I had this really traumatic experience my freshman year where this upperclassman who probably was under the influence, now looking back, tried to make unwanted contact with me.
Right.
And another fun fact is that I was trained in martial arts.
Oh,
so I was okay. I walked away
okay.
perfectly fine. But what I knew that emotionally something was off. I'm definitely outgoing and extroverted, but I found that I was more anxious around my friend groups, especially around other boys, and wasn't like me. So I was like, that's a red flag for me that something is really wrong. So I saw our school therapist, and that experience for me of working with her just to get through that difficult time and heal from that trauma was so eye-opening that I could really help someone else do this type of work.
Oh,
and that's when I was like, I know that I want to do more of this work. I still had other areas of interest, but this had to be one of them. So I really got to cultivate that and make that my own. And now I incorporate mindfulness and affirmations.
And mindfulness, that's the second time that's come up today for me. And I think that's really important for people.
It is. And we can do that on our own.
And you can do that on your own. Yeah, someone said to me, in fact, yesterday, they said, I'm practicing mindfulness. What does that mean? I mean, what is, just on every level.
Yes.
Whether it's your health, your diet, right? The
It's
way
just
you
a
interact
sense
with
of
people.
awareness, yes.
Awareness of what's around you and how you react to that.
Exactly.
Correct?
Yes,
Yeah, interesting.
that's a really great definition.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just that sense of awareness, that attachment to the sense of self. We can get so busy, right? And you have no idea, have you eaten today? How am I actually feeling emotionally? Like, how many hours of sleep did I get last night? Simple things, like how much water did I actually drink today? Like, those are all things that we should be regularly
every
aware
day.
of.
Right. So going into the children and young girls that encounter bullying, and I think my daughter encountered it, and I think so many girls do, boys, as well. But I was reading something about it today. They talked about the fact that you should express your anger if you're being bullied. Can you explain that? I mean, this is an interesting.
I'm not sure that
rather than retreat and keep it in and become even more angry internally. That
Yes.
there's ways to deal with it, and I don't know if you talk at all, if you get involved with younger women that encounter this, because I think it's quite an epidemic, actually.
It is, and it's really sad, and it's happening
It's
in
sad.
so many ways, especially
Right.
social media. It's a whole other
Well, that's a whole other level.
arena. But I think the biggest thing that I'm hearing from that is holding a tolerance for things like anger. Like oftentimes,
Oh, really? Interesting.
yes,
Okay.
when we're talking about a really difficult emotion that's hard to hold, whether it
Yes.
be anger or sadness, you want to retreat from it. Whether you're expressing the anger internally or
Externally, you still need to retreat from it.
right.
Interesting.
So it's being okay with holding every emotional space, because it is healthy. It's healthy to release in a healthy way.
Yes.
But if our connotation to anger is a negative one, we're going to want to shy away from it. So I think the way that we define anger needs to be different. The challenge is that
The definition.
the challenge is that oftentimes when we see anger portrayed, especially in media, it's done in a negative light. This is
Right.
anger. Anger can still be going for a run.
Right.
It can still be lifting weights. It could still be playing piano or just
Right.
finding any kind of release for it. I think it's just important to find a space for safe emotional expression.
Oh, that's great. Now, do you have a lot of younger? I mean, is your patient profile? The groups that you work with.
Yeah,
But just range? Does it range from?
it does. In terms of the trauma work that I do at the hospital, it does start from 18 and go up. But I am a mentor as well
That's
outside
great.
of.
Oh,
Yeah.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Why does that not surprise me?
Yes, outside of being a therapist, and I do discuss with the girls a lot about the importance of building their own confidence, which, even when I help girls in pageantry, younger girls, it's a matter of making sure that pageants are just used as an outlet, not as a
Right.
way of defining who you
Right,
are.
defining
Like
who you
I'm
are, right.
Andromeda Peters, who just so happens to be Miss United States,
Right,
but it's not
right.
all of me, it's just one
Right,
part of me.
right.
And if I didn't win this pageant, I'd still be Andromeda Peters doing
Right.
my movement. This
Right,
isn't
right.
what's going
That's
to
great.
cultivate that for me. So it's helping them be okay in their own skin. We work a lot on self-compassion and self-love, and
It's wonderful.
yeah,
Wow.
just we have to fill that hole for ourselves. So
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
important.
Do you go to a lot of schools?
I haven't been to too many,
Okay.
but a lot of the work that I do in schools is more centered around self-care in particular.
Okay, great.
One of the exciting things, one of my favorite appearances was when I went back to Massachusetts, where I'm originally
I
from.
was going to ask you where you're from.
Yeah, I visited Chicopee High School, and they had
Oh,
about
that's great.
three
You're
and
a
a half
superstar.
weeks. 3.5 weeks left of school, and I visited, oh my gosh, a lot of classrooms in just one day. We just kind of squeezed it all in and jam-packed it with teachers who I used to have, so it was extra
Oh my
special,
God.
yeah.
Yeah.
And talking to the children about their schedules. And it was, I wake up early in the morning. If I'm an athlete, sometimes I have practice before classes, class all day, practice after class.
Right.
Some students work or have artistic,
Right.
obligations as
Responsibilities,
well.
right.
Then they go home and they do homework and they eat and they're in bed late and they're up
Exhausted.
again.
Right.
And I'm like, that's a jam-packed schedule for kids.
Yes.
And I think back to being a high school student, I'm like, I was on that schedule back then and I
Right.
didn't know anything about self-care. So we talked a lot about mindfulness in the classroom, breathing, asking your teacher for a break, making sure that you have time
Right.
outs when you go home, because I know we can't really control society and how busy we can be, but there are little small things
Small
that we
things
can
that
do
we
to
can do.
tune in.
That's wonderful. Oh my
Yes.
God. Well, I want to talk to you about PTSD and all your work in the PTSD space, because this is personal, for me, having been involved. And then we're gonna take a short break. Then we'll come back and we'll talk about that. And it's
Awesome.
exciting. Thank you.
Of course.
You're watching The Next Word. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Hey everybody! Heart disease affects 1 in every 3 women in America, but you can fight back. There's no time to lose. Mothers, sisters, daughters, families, and friends, it's time to shout louder, stand stronger, and demand change.
Let's go!
To the Batmobile. Dang it.
To the invisible jet! Dang it.
Together, we can put an end to heart disease. It's time to go red for women.
I could use your help.
Learn more from the American Heart Association at www.goredforwomen.org.
Welcome back. You're watching The Next Word. I'm your host, Chris Warnke, and tonight we're having a conversation with Miss Andromeda Peters, who is the current reigning queen of Miss United States. Wow, Miss United States. So you think about it, and we talked about this earlier. Miss United States pageant, Miss USA pageant, Miss America pageant, and with every one of them, of course, you have to be beautiful, and you have to be talented, of course, and you have to have a passion, which yours, of course, is mental health advocacy. But we mentioned the difference. So, because Miss USA and Miss America, there's a talent component, correct?
There's a talent proportion to Miss America.
Right.
Miss USA does go on to compete internationally, and Miss Universe, but Miss United States and Miss America are nationally based, so
Yes.
a lot of our work is national. So we're doing things throughout the country, and a lot of our focus is here. We don't go on to compete overseas.
Overseas.
Yeah.
But you certainly have a lot of work here.
A lot of work
a lot
here.
Of work here. And I know after you leave and your reign, is finished, which is what, August, correct? I know you're going to continue to
I
continue
have a
your
full
great work.
schedule until November.
Do you really? So they keep inviting you back. Everybody wants you to come.
Yes, it's so amazing. I just never imagined how much my life would change. So I know I haven't been doing pageants for very long, but once I had my eyes set on being Miss United States, I never imagined what would come with it. And so many doors have opened up, and so many more that
amazing.
It's life changing.
It's
in
life,
so
of
many
course.
ways. Yeah.
So do you go all over the United States? I'm
Yes,
sure you
I've been
do.
all over. I think in April I was never home. I was gone every weekend, going to different
sure.
states, and it's been amazing. And a lot of my own platform work with
Yes.
my mental health
Mental health,
advocacy,
right.
but also collaborating with other charitable organizations as well. And of course, we have our state pageants for Miss United States that I've been able to attend.
So and every state has its own pageant,
Yeah,
correct?
so you compete for your
Okay,
state title
right,
before you go
right.
on to win.
Right.
We'll compete at nationals.
Okay, and then you competed though in Miss Delaware? No.
So I was appointed 1 year
Okay,
to
that's
have the
right, 1 year,
experience,
right.
but I lived in Virginia last
Okay,
year,
so you were
so I
Miss
was Miss Virginia.
You were Miss Virginia, and that's how you.
Yeah, that's
came
how
to do.
that's how I got to Miss
Wow,
United
so
States.
You competed for Miss Virginia. How interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
but you live in our wonderful state of Maryland.
Yes, moved to Maryland shortly
Okay,
after.
okay.
And well, shortly after I won nationals. But
That's it.
I think for me, it was Miss Virginia was not too far away from Miss United
Yes,
States. So I
yeah.
actually had to go into Miss Virginia being nationals ready.
Oh,
And so there's a
wow.
difference. There's state ready and there's nationals ready. So state ready
That's
is
a
you
whole
do
process.
enough to win your state
God.
pageant. But I had to go in ready to be Miss United States
Right.
at Miss Virginia because there was only a month from when I won my
Oh my
state
God.
title to go in
Right.
and compete at Miss United States.
Oh my God, that's unbelievable. If you think about it, you're right. You have to be prepared, and there's a whole different level of
Yes.
expectations.
So I was like so mentally charged and just in alignment and doing a lot
Yes.
of, for me, a lot of my pageant prep is mindfulness work. So I have been
Yes, so you
focusing
could
on
already
that for months.
you had a leg up on everybody else. That's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in New Orleans when you won, correct?
Orlando.
Oh, Orlando, I'm sorry. And then you're going to go on now to
Las
finish up your
Vegas.
reign in Las Vegas. So is that where they generally like a lot of these like Orlando or New Orleans or Las Vegas?
Yeah, I'm not the most business savvy when it comes to the behind the scenes work
Yes,
of
yes,
pageantry,
right.
but I think there's location that's taken
Yes,
into account in
which
terms
is large
of
enough. Yeah,
financial
right,
and
right.
I'm sure also what's going to bring in for the hosting
Right,
venues
right.
as well. So I think there's a lot of that work in between
Right.
that determines where we go.
Right, right. Yeah, it's incredible. And of course, you'll continue your work regardless.
Yes, for sure.
Because as a beauty pageant queen, you'll always be.
You'll always be Miss United
You'll always
States.
be Miss United States, so much better title. So you'll continue that role, and you'll be invited, I'm sure, to speak many more times after this.
Yes, I have a
Many
lot of
different places.
other events coming up after I crown the next winner, and of course, as Miss United States, I didn't pursue a lot of independent projects because I wanted my focus to be on being a national title holder.
Right.
But then I have free reign to do a lot
yes.
of that work, so it'll be nice to be able to pursue more independent avenues while continuing my advocacy
Absolutely.
as well.
Now, do they help you with your travel and your?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
and all of the
And sometimes if an organization reaches out to my publicist
Yes.
or anyone from my team in particular, that organization will cover whatever travel
Yes,
fees
right.
that I have. Yeah.
So going back to your mental health therapy work, in which I have to tell you is very laudatory. I mean, I'm in awe, and we appreciate people like you because we have such a tremendous problem here. I think with the returning veterans,
Yes.
which I see a lot, certainly because we're in the area. You have Walter Reed. By the way, do you interface with Walter Reed at all in terms of, you do, yeah. Yes, well, certainly I've had experience in that field, but you work with children, of course, but you really work with all ages. But you mentioned that PTSD is a particular focus.
Yes, I didn't have any kinds of plans while going to school to study trauma, but I think that experience, even though I walked away unscathed physically, and I'm so thankful for that, but it was very eye-opening. I thought to myself, girls who don't get away from scary situations like those, like what are they left with if I'm having an emotionally hard time? And I was able to get through it, but I know that there's so many girls who never get a chance to get into therapy at all. So I was really a voice on my campus to wage change so that girls could be safe on campus. And then when I got my independent license,
That's great.
yeah, I was able to go from working inpatient into the intensive outpatient and partial hospitalization program for individuals with PTSD, and really get into a lot of treatment modalities specific to trauma, especially in terms of processing and developing safe space, and then acceptance for trauma when trauma, and then the grieving process that comes with that. And like I was talking about earlier, holding emotional space for all the emotions that may come up. Oftentimes when we go through really traumatic events, we don't have a safe space to process. You're just trying to survive. So, our center is like a nice little healing ground where people are able to feel safe to open up. And the beautiful part is that a lot of our focus is group focused.
Oh, wow.
So you're facilitating groups, and the group members are giving each other feedback, and you're helping them do all of this.
Support networks.
The support and opening up, and it's just I love being there. It's a beautiful place to be.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yes.
And so but your full time is at the Psychiatric Institute of Washington, correct?
That's where I do the trauma work. Yes.
Right, which you do the trauma work, and then you. No, it's wonderful. Have you found that the treatment process for PTSD patients is improved substantially in the last 5 years? I mean, I've seen 10 years ago it was much different than it is, I think, today.
Yes, it's hard for me to speak on that completely because I still am very much a young therapist, I don't know a lot about the contrast from how things were previously, except for things that are found in research. But what I have come to find is that mindfulness is strongly highlighted now in a lot of this healing work, and even the use of deep breathing and to help with grounding. So there's a lot of emphasis on that, which is so important because, I always highlight that we're not trying to cure trauma, right? You're, of course, healing. It's living with the wound, but it's also being equipped with the tools to help you cope when you have to, when you're triggered or when you're experiencing fear or experiencing a flashback. Do you have the tools to help yourself self-soothe in the moment? So a lot of our focus is on that, and I find that a lot of it ties back into the mindfulness movement.
And the whole alternative medicine.
Yes.
Which is critical. Yeah,
exactly.
So that's
and even diagnoses like dissociative identity disorder, I know that wasn't even always recognized, but I find that there's more research and providers who do support that, and we support a lot of individuals with a diagnosis at the day center where I work. So, a lot of our individuals are working through a lot of the symptoms that come with that diagnosis, and we're able to support them. But I'm also able to find providers on the outside to also support them as well, continuing their healing after they graduate.
That's wonderful. Oh my God. So, going back to your next steps, which we just said you're going to travel, and you're booked already through November, which I'm sure you're going to be booked through the whole next year.
I know. I'm like, it's a little window. I don't know how long I'll have a little window.
Right, a little window, right. But it's exciting.
Yes.
Do you have plans for a book, or do you have plans for...
Yes, I actually am working on a book
right now.
Say,
I know you have plans for a book. What are you
working on a book right now that's really centered around self-love and just reminders for readers. And then my father and I, my dad who is transgender, working on a father-daughter memoir together about this journey together to help other LGBTQ families as well.
And do you have other siblings?
So,
is
more family dynamics. Yeah. I'm an only child from my mother's side, but my father, before meeting my mom, was a musician and traveled a lot. So I have siblings in Europe and Ghana. So, but I'm the only one in America. Yes.
Yeah, you have to go to Ghana. Ghana's beautiful.
Soon.
Yeah, yeah. I'm surprised. I'm sure they're gonna say you have to be here because to have somebody like yourself as a product of the Ghanaian culture, and
it's beautiful
it's
culture.
in your DNA. Huh?
Yes, beautiful culture. So
beautiful, and wonderful people, and it's a very large community here in this area.
Oh yes, I've been able to connect with a lot of brothers and sisters, so it's been nice, and I get to get the food whenever I want because I can't cook it. Maybe one day I'll learn. So I get my fix.
I get your fix of the food. That's great. Oh my God, that's great. But now, so currently you live in Maryland, right? You decided. you moved over the bridge, as they
Over
say.
the bridge, yes, over the bridge.
Yeah, over the bridge, and you like.
Oh yeah, I
Living
love it there. I don't get to spend a lot of time at home.
I'm sure you don't.
But
I'm sure you do.
but when I'm there, it's a nice place to decompress and relax and peace. There's nature around me, so it's just
Yes.
a nice little hub of relaxation for me.
So let's talk, going back to mindfulness. I mean, tell me, what are the kinds of things you would tell a patient? Like, okay, be aware of your surroundings, but you know,
Aware of surroundings, but more in what's going on
intuitive,
internally.
yeah.
Tuning in with yourself. I really help clients, especially through the use of guided meditation, begin to tap in.
Wow.
A big symptom of trauma is dissociation
Right.
on a lot of different levels. So it's-
Disassociation.
So it's getting back grounded into your body, feeling
Right.
rooted again. And so when we disconnect, we often are not aware of what's going on
Right.
emotionally or even physically.
Right.
I know I have individuals who may be dealing with an injury that they haven't gotten looked at or a cold that they haven't seen
Right.
a doctor for.
Right.
So it's learning to tune in. So every morning we spend time checking in physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Any updates on how evenings have been or how the last few days were, if they're not coming every single day, to really help them be able to put words to their experiences. But also when they're not in group, to be able to just breathe. Like deep breathing is
Really?
often underestimated.
It's very
but,
underestimated.
but if you think about it, it's the first thing that we do when
Right.
we're born,
Right.
and it's the last thing we do when we
Right.
pass on. So there's so much power in the breath, and if we can tune in enough, we realize that our heart rate and breathing rate changes based on whatever emotional experience we're having.
Really?
So it's important
what
to
would you-
always give yourself that extra oxygen.
Right.
So I walk them through this series of different exercises. One is the 4-4 breathing, where you're
So tell me this performance, can you?
Yes, so you inhale for 4 seconds, you hold your breath for 4, and you exhale for 4.
Wow.
You do that enough times, and your body begins to relax itself and calm down, and you instantly feel better.
Oh, that's
Not saying it
terrific.
cures your problems, but it
No, but
helps
at
you
least
to
you
feel
help-
grounded
right.
and more safe.
Oh my God, this is wonderful. I need to come.
We'll
I
have
need
more
some pointers.
mindfulness talks over tea or something.
Yes, I know. I need some more mindfulness. No, but it's really true. I don't know. It was just interesting that this has been raised, like I said, in the last couple of days.
Yes.
You know, with friends that.
Even
Have some-
essential oils. I keep essential oils in my office, the doTERRA especially. I
Yeah.
diffuse them, and my clients, we use them in groups. So it's just little things that we can give ourselves. It's
Really?
Again, it's taking your self-care on the go. That's one of the things that I highlight a lot as well.
Yes.
It's managing your self-care and emotional wellness throughout your busy schedule. You don't have to stop everything you're doing,
Right.
but you have to
To
be able to take
manage
short
it,
time outs.
right.
Yes.
And cat naps too. I hear cat naps
Oh.
are good.
Cat naps are great. I just have a hard time waking up from cat naps.
Oh, do you? Oh, that's because you're young. No, I understand. No, they're great. They're great. But this has been wonderful. I mean, absolutely wonderful. And you're going to go on and I know make such a huge social impact. I know. I see great things, and what a pleasure. And
Thank
I
you so
appreciate you
much.
being here. I really do. And plus, you're a Maryland. You're now a Maryland.
Yes, I am.
A Maryland woman. We love it. We love it. So
Thank you so much.
You have
for
to come
having
back.
me.
And
I would
you
love
have to come back after your reign is over.
and
So
fill
I
you
wanna
in on the
fill
scoop.
you in on everything. Right. Right.
I would love that so
Okay.
much.
Yes, as you pass the torch, but you'll continue
Continue
light
the work.
more fires and more interesting things. And
Yeah. Just hope to keep inspiring people.
yes, oh, yes, I have no doubt. I can't wait to read your book. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You've been watching The Next Word. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.